What's up, nerds? Welcome back to another episode of Video Nerds.
Video Nerds.
I'm the ManNerd, and I am accompanied today with...
Me, Stephenshred, as usual.
As usual? I like the me part. That was good.
They gotta know that it's me, you know?
They gotta know it's you. Today, we are going to be jumping into a gore fest called Evil Dead Rise. So, what was your first reaction of the opening scenes to this movie, without any spoilers yet?
Pretty much based off of Evil Dead 2013, which we will talk about later. The first parts, I was like, oh man, business as usual.
Yeah, pretty much. And it gives you, to me, it was like, really? I thought this was taking place somewhere else. It's like, this is way too familiar, but they did that on purpose. They wanted to bring you into something familiar and then take you away. They might have been different otherwise, I think.
Yeah, I liked it. It's a little change up, especially in comparison to the last movie in this, I guess, sequel series that we'll call it. We only had a couple, we only had 5 characters in the last movie, really, and it all took place in one spot. This one, they gave us a nice little change up in the beginning.
Yeah, it was nice to get a different group of victims right off the bat.
Yeah.
And you'll find that out quickly, so it's not really a spoiler. All right, so I'm going to jump into my no spoilers movie review on this one.
Let's get to it.
I'm going to do 2. I'm going to do the teenager me and then the current me. So, teenager me would definitely give this a D12 for sure, because it was everything that I wanted in a horror movie. It was scary, it was gory, the acting was actually pretty darn good. It was based off of something that I was already dear to my heart, so I would have loved it. Now, the new me, I would say probably a D8 to a D10. Again, I know I'm doing these a lot, but it's on the verge of watching it again and not watching it again. I don't know if I would unless I'm doing like a rewatch through the series type of thing. But even then, this one's a little rough for me because it's very gory and I just don't go for that anymore. It's a little rough. All right, what about you?
I would say probably a D12 for me, because I don't know what it is. I don't normally like gory movies, but if I'm in the mood for it, I will just like go and seek it for a good while. Like I'll watch like a couple back to back. Like there was one week where I decided to watch all the Saw movies. Not really a gore guy, but you know, when the feeling strikes, I just want to listen to some heavy music and watch some gory movies. I don't know what it is, man.
It's that piece inside of you, that little demon that comes out every now and then.
That little primal beast that's like smash everything. Everything dies. Getting dark today.
I'm going to do something a little different right now. This just came to mind. Since ScoMo was such a big horror fan, loved Evil Dead, we should rate it for him. I truly think he would have rated this a D12 or a D20.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. He would have loved it. I would imagine a lot of ScoMo screams throughout this.
Oh yeah, and a lot of holding his mouth. Yeah, lots of that.
And a lot of covering his eyes, but then looking anyways.
Tell me when to look.
Definitely fair.
So, definitely fair. Now let's get into this. Let's do. You know what I'm doing.
Yup.
You know exactly what I'm doing.
It's about that time.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
All right. So let's get into spoilers, man. Let's just jump straight into that beginning scene, which takes place at a cabin in the woods.
That it does.
Now, what was your favorite part of that? It was pretty short. It was only a few minutes, but it gets you into the goriness very, very quickly.
Not gonna lie, my favorite part was the end of it, where she just like rises out of the water, and because like for Evil Dead and stuff, there is of course the obvious that it is supernatural, but it always feels like the things that are happening aren't extremely supernatural. It's a lot of gore, it's a lot of pain, it's a lot of all this violence, but it's not really things that would happen supernaturally. It's usually not until like the very ends of the movie that we start seeing like real crazy stuff. So it's like seeing like full on supernatural. She floats out of the water and everything. I really like that. I thought that was like really cool because it just gives you the sense of like the power that they're dealing with, that it's like, you know, it gives this sense that it's something more than just, you know, violent insanity.
Oh, that's a really good point. I didn't think of that. They usually do save that for later, don't they?
Yeah. How about you?
For me, I have to go with the obvious choice here. It's going to be the drone scene. You know, you think, oh, the drone, they're going to push this person into the drone. But no, the demon actually uses the drone to mess up their face. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Definitely threw my expectations out the door.
They hit us with I forgot what the actual cinematic term is. I forgot what it's called. The idea that if a weapon is mentioned or shown, that it has to be used. They mention,
well, yeah, basically foreshadowing.
Yeah,
with that.
Yeah, I forgot the exact thing. It's something's gun. I forgot the term, but yeah, they mentioned in the very beginning, one of the first lines we hear in them talking about a drone can't decapitate a person. One argues that it can, the other argues that it can't. So immediately we called it out. We're like, okay, somebody's getting their head cut off with a drone.
Yep. But now the demon likes to just use the drone to disfigure their face.
Yeah.
So that it's gory, man.
Yeah, it was quite the shot.
All right, so you don't realize until later that this beginning scene is very important, and we'll get into that later after we get through the meat and potatoes of this. Now, the main story
More
here
meat than potatoes.
in this apartment building in a city, which is different than any other Evil Dead. It's always out in the woods or some fantastical place in the past, basically. Except for Ash versus Evil Dead. That was completely different.
Yeah.
I was immersed in the environment right off the bat just because you get that feel that it is a very, almost abandoned building because everybody's getting evicted. You get the notion that they're going to kick everybody out and probably tear down that place. And it just looks horrible, and there's not many people around there. There's a few neighbors, but that's about it. How is your feeling on the environment in this one, the world?
It was definitely like it gave the feel of like dark, like griminess, and you know, it set the stage, I think, for like some nasty stuff to go down. Just I don't know what it is. Just the setting in itself gave me the feeling like oh man, like this is like a setting where you see like a lot of like really like grimy, dark movies and stuff like that. So I'm like, like it just puts me in that sense of what would be the word? Sense of like unease almost. It just seems like a type of place where some stuff go down.
What would that be in musical terms? Dissonance? Is that right?
Yeah, definitely that.
Nice.
Yeah, it could just be that we're watching an Evil Dead movie though.
Yeah.
But the setting was definitely interesting.
We did rewatch the 2013 version, and it was dark, but it wasn't like this. This was, like you said, the dark and grimy, kind of like, you'd be watching a movie that takes place in a sewer or something. Kind of felt like that.
Yeah, where like the cabin in the woods type deal gives you more of a sense of you're abandoned, alone out there. This is more of like, this is a grimy, nasty place where bad things would happen and people around probably wouldn't care too much.
And the fact that they're in the middle of a city and there are tons of people just not there, and this shit can still happen. That's kind of frightening.
Like when I was a kid, for some reason, I thought that movies were real, and I always wondered what happened to the people after the movie ended. So the thought that I always had was like, what happens after that? You know, you go through a monster movie, you go through a demon movie, ghost, whatever. Say you live. Then you go on the rest of your life knowing that stuff like that exists, and it could pop up again at any time. So it's like that sense of like, this all goes down in a highly populated city in an apartment building, and it could happen to anybody in the area too. Like, dude, that sucks.
Like, if you make it out, you're never the same, ever.
Yeah. Yeah, let's get into the story.
Okay, let's do it. I'll let you lead the way. Where do you want to start?
The complete opposite. Dark and grimy setting, but we get the mom, Ellie, who is a tattoo artist. She looks to have like a loving family, They're like teenage age kids, 2 of them, and then a younger daughter as well. But they all seem, it seemed like a nice family, usual teenage stuff. One of them seems very angsty. It is the complete shift of the idea of like the dark and grimy setting. So I thought that was kind of nice, but at the same time I was like, this is gonna get real messed up real quick, huh?
Yeah, once you see a family that has that interactions, and they did a very good job, those actors. They were very good at that. It felt to me like they were family members, bouncing off of each other with the dialogue and these little tiny fights that they're having, and then that turn into tickling fits, which is always nice. And then it turns bad. Then it turns so bad.
Turns real bad. They get paid a visit by the aunt. I believe her name was Beth. Am I?
Beth, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just making sure I had that right. She's been out of touch. She comes in. Things are not the best between her and Ellie, with Ellie's husband recently leaving, and Beth seeming at least to not be very involved in support and that kind of thing, as far as like just being there for her sister. So there's tension there, and then they send the kids off to go get pizza because pizza brings everyone together.
Always.
Then it starts getting bad.
Then there's an earthquake and they drop the pizza.
Yep, that was, I don't know why that was such a fixating point for me. I was like, just put the pizza down. Why do you need to throw it on the floor?
Yeah, they just throw it upside down and it's gone forever. You can't even enjoy it, even a little bit.
Yeah, they bought like 3 boxes of pizza. It's like, dude, just put it on the floor real quick. Like, it's like, like whether you live or you die, pizza's good, man. Like, you lived through it. All right, cool. We still got our pizza. You lived through it. You threw the pizza on the floor. Now you don't got pizza. Makes no sense.
Maybe that was a way for them to be like, you know what? Here's a really messed up tragedy that's going to happen. Just losing 3 pizzas.
Yeah. But
it gets way worse. Just wait.
Yep. Very much in the same style of all of these movies. So the ground opens up. So instead of there being a basement, there is an opening where they see, because they talk earlier in the movie about the building having an old bank in the bottom of it. So it opens up the floor with the earthquake, and as kids do, they go adventure down there, and they stumble across a bunch of what are they called? The security safes or something like that?
Safety deposit boxes.
Safety deposit box. And one of them has a mysterious book. And
of course,
it's all locked up. It has some intense looking defense on it. It's got some spiky fang looking teeth things holding it together.
Yeah, the typical don't touch me, but they always touch it no matter what.
Yep. And of course, the most alarming part of it is they get a drop of blood on it, and all of a sudden it opens up.
Mm-hmm.
There are recordings that go along with it, and instead of immediately saying, this is a bad idea, that thing just opened because blood got on it, let's throw it away, or let's put it somewhere where nobody can get it, they decide to start messing with it. Starts looking at all the pictures, starts looking at everything, and then the recordings, he has a whole DJ setup and everything, the oldest son. So he decides to start playing it. And of course, as always, the incantation is in there.
Yep.
And
ooh, now what?
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. Now the reveal there about the 3 different volumes of the Necronomicon.
That's right.
Yeah, I was not expecting that. I figured it was just going to be the same one, and this is just, it moved on. But they added a level to this.
Yes, they did. Which they've talked about all of Evil Dead being the same universe. So 3 Necronomicons makes sense because we have 2013 that has its own. We have this movie that has its own, and then we have the original series with Bruce Campbell that has its own.
Yep.
So it covers all 3 different places that the Necronomicon would need to be in to affect all of these people.
Oh, yeah. And the incantations, of course, like always, were creepy. And this was done by, wasn't it a priest?
I believe so. It was a presentation, I believe.
Yeah, trying to use it for good in some way, which they always think they can use evil stuff for good.
Yeah, I don't know why that's such a thing. I mean, even the Doom series, you know, they open everything up because the Argent energy is like, you know, free energy, but it happens to be human souls. So it's like, just stop messing with bad stuff, and these things will stop happening.
Don't power your phone with souls, people. Just don't do it.
It's not a good idea, you know? Just get the battery. It's okay.
Yeah. Good old-fashioned electricity. Just use that. All right, so moving on into the possession. So it's the mom, Ellie, who gets possessed in an elevator. And that whole thing was kind of intense. And afterwards, she comes out and goes back to the house, and you can tell something's wrong, just like every time somebody gets possessed in one of these movies. They start acting weird, and then there is the big reveal of, oh, they're possessed. And it usually happens with some sort of a murder. But this one happened a little bit different. All right, so the mom starts acting crazy and goes on a crazy cooking eggs like you should never cook eggs, with the shells still in there. And everything's so messy. And you could tell that it's looking like she's gonna die. And then she does. She falls dead on the floor and then resurrects as a demon. And that's where all hell breaks loose.
Literally.
Now, since we talked about this before, the foreshadowing of all the different things that are going to kill people, all the different items, which ones were your favorite?
Probably the use of the wood chipper later on.
That was pretty brutal.
We see it when they're coming back from getting the pizza, I believe. And it highlights it as it like pans through the garage. And I'm like, yep, that is 100% getting used.
For me, it was the tattooed needle. Because you see that, she's using that, and then it's like, oh yeah, that's going to be rough. Because, you know, darn well they're going to go for somebody's eye. That's what they always do.
Yep, they always got to make it as painful as possible.
Okay, and also second best is going to be, what did she call that stick? Hey, the stick with a doll head on it, named Stephanie. That turns into a brutal weapon later on.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a good one.
As soon as that was brought up, I'm like, somebody's getting murdered with that thing.
And that was a little girl that named it Stephanie.
Yeah, that a lot of stuff that little girl's gonna be dealing with.
A lot of stuff. Now let's talk about the character stories here. So like you said before, you've got the family, you've got the mother who her husband left, and then you've got the tension between the mother and the aunt, their sisters. And of course the aunt's the cool aunt because she was a guitar tech that traveled around with bands. Now she's back because you find early on that she is pregnant. It's kind of one of those things where you don't know if she's actually pregnant or if she lost a baby or something, but something's wrong and she needs help from her sister. So you've got that whole thing driving her, that whole can I be a mother thing. And then the actual mother to the kids is possessed by a demon and dies and trying to kill everybody. So she has to step in as the protector. How did that whole emotional aspect of this hit you?
It was fine. Like, I don't know. I didn't feel as attached to a lot of these characters as I did in 2013 Evil Dead. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but yeah, because like my whole thing was the mom's already gone, so it's just kind of like well, that's a wrap. Like it sucks too, because she seemed to be a very caring and loving mother who was already going through a hard time, and then she gets possessed by a demon.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where this really popped off early, and they did do a good job of setting that up, making you feel for the characters, but there could have been a little bit more of that, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for the amount of time that they had, it wasn't bad, but yeah, definitely could have made you feel more for the characters, especially the mom before she's just, dead demon.
Yeah, the stuff with the aunt, I felt kind of the same way that I did in Megan, where it didn't really give me like a motherly caring vibe as much as it did this kid could get murdered, so I'm just like not gonna let this kid get murdered.
Yeah, survival protector mode.
Yeah, as opposed to conditioning her to be the mother that is no longer there. Just kind of like, if a little kid's about to get murdered, probably shouldn't let that happen.
All right, so to the shock of us as Evil Dead fans, almost everybody dies. Isn't that weird? That shocked me.
Yeah, the teenage son and daughter, they also get possessed. Pretty much everybody in the building, there's a family that lives across from them. They interact with them quite a bit. They all get straight up murdered. One pretty intense part was you hear the youngest kid from that family kind of like struggling and everything, and then all of a sudden he gets thrown into a wall without any arms. So that was intense, because he was a pretty young kid, maybe like 10, 11, seemed like.
Yeah, and then had an older brother.
Yeah, so they all get pretty brutally murdered. The one thing that was very frustrating to me, the older gentleman that they're dealing with, I never understood, was he supposed to be like a landlord, or was he just like, he just lived there too?
He just lived there. He was just a grumpy old man that talked about how noisy they were.
Yeah, so he has a double barrel shotgun, and the boomstick is very classic Evil Dead. I thought that was gonna get a ton of use, kind of, but not really. It got some use. It was just more of like a little fancy prop that we got a little nod to it. So I thought that was gonna. I was a little frustrated because there was a moment where it could have been used, and then it wasn't. I was just like, come on, like what are we doing here?
Like, you've got a shotgun, but also in that aspect, do they know how to use it? Would they know how to reload it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a good question, I guess, but I don't know. I feel like a double barrel shotgun is very self-explanatory. It's got like zero mechanics to it. It's literally load,
pop it open, take the shells out, put new ones in, boom, boom.
Pull hammers back, boom.
Literally.
Yeah, it's like one of the least complicated weapons ever, but it is what it is. And as the story goes on, we get numerous just torturous stuff. Like you mentioned, tattoo needle to the eye. We get a lot of people just getting cut up. It is rough.
We get Bridget turning into a demon and then eating glass and swallowing it, and you can see it. And oh my god,
yeah,
that messed me up. I don't think I can forget that.
It was it was quite a lot.
And it all culminated into the wood chipper.
Yep, they have their final fight, their final struggle in the parking garage, which, being that it's happening there, I immediately knew that it was going to lead to the wood chipper, because they talk about it in Evil Dead 2013. They talk about it in this movie. During the recording of the priest, he mentions the only way to kill them is dismemberment. I believe burning their bodies was something too, like
burning, and then in the 2013, I forget if it's in this one, but they talk about the live burial as well.
Yeah, which you can't really do in a big city. But yeah.
No, not really. No.
The final struggle is not against one possessed person. It is against a amalgamation of all of them into this
Omega demon.
Yeah, into this weird, nasty monster of all of their like body parts and everything, and it's pretty gross.
Now, at the end of this, you get the connection to the beginning, to the cabin.
Yes.
You see this girl that was the possessed one at the cabin in the beginning, and she's leaving this garage because apparently she lives there, and she's going to spend the weekend in a cabin with some friends, and she gets possessed by the demon, and that's how that continues. So the beginning of the movie is actually the end of the movie.
Yep. Which sets up, maybe a sequel or something like that, or maybe they just want to put it out there that the evil is just spreading.
Yeah, because even dismemberment did not take care of it. It just jumped into another body.
Yeah, it was. It was quite the intense movie.
All right, so now let's segue into the 2013 version. Now, that was a remake of the original with Bruce Campbell, of course, which they did Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, and then the show. Now, this one, the daughter at the beginning saying, I will eat your soul, daddy, to the dad that's going to light her on fire. That's what really got me into the whole, oh shit mode.
Like, this is very different.
Like, wow, okay, they're going serious on this one. Holy crap.
Yeah.
What was your segue into that this is a horror movie mode?
Mine was actually very different. I never watched the original Evil Dead movies. I was aware of them, but I never watched them. So 2013 Evil Dead movie was my introduction to Evil Dead. And I watched it with my grandma. So it's every time my grandma would be like, oh, let's watch this. So I'm like, okay, we'll watch it. But I'm like, oh, but this is a horror movie. And she's like, oh, I'll be fine. It's okay. And then every time she just starts covering her eyes because it starts getting really bad. So my initial thoughts were, this is going to get like really intense with like the language and, the daughter at the beginning getting lit on fire and then having her head blown off with a shotgun. I was like, okay, like it kind of set the tone. I was like, oh, like they're not messing around. Yeah, we had to have a refresher for this movie because we were talking about it during Evil Dead Rise watch, where it felt very reminiscent of this one as opposed to the originals. So we figure, we'll treat them as a sequel. We'll go back and watch this one. And yeah, Evil Dead 2013 was every bit as wild as I remembered.
Yeah, and for me, I saw Evil Dead Rise and I was like, you know what, this is way worse, like in a gory and horror sense than the 2013. Then rewatching the 2013 after so many years, nope, definitely on the same level, for sure, 100%. Holy crap.
Yeah, it is pretty intense.
All right, out of the 2013 version, who was your favorite character?
I'm always going to be super biased. I am a big fan of Jane Levy, so Mia. Even though she's like possessed the entire time, but
Yeah, but we're already doing spoilers, so she actually gets unpossessed and kicks ass at the end. So there's that.
Very true.
Now I gotta say the nurse Olivia, that was mine because she was caring, she was tough, and of course very pretty. So it's everything right there.
Yep, and then she cuts her own face off with a piece of a broken mirror. So that's
yeah, and that goes straight into my least favorite part of that movie. Yeah, because the sound of that was really bad.
Yeah, the sound was worse than the visual. I think just you hear a bunch of like wet, like cutting, like it sounds like somebody's trying to saw down a steak with a really dull knife, and then you hear like plopping when she throws pieces of her face on the floor, and yeah, it's pretty gross.
Yeah, and at this point, we forgot to mention, like we did at the end of the last episode of Video Nerds, don't be eating during this while we're talking about it.
True.
'Cause that's pretty nasty. Yeah.
It gets pretty bad.
Okay, so on that version, we have the general, they find the book in the basement. Some jackass reads from it, gets blood on it. It's wrapped in barbed wire in a trash bag, and then ends up cutting himself and getting it on the book, activating it, reading the incantation, and then there you go. The whole thing starts. Now, what was something different about this version from the others that you noticed?
The reasoning for being at the cabin was a little more realistic, as far as not realistic, but a little more. It made sense a little more why they're not believing Mia, because she's a recovering heroin addict. So they take her to the cabin so she could go through withdrawals and detox away from anything that could give her any chance to get out of it. And then she starts talking about seeing, a demon, this happened. It makes sense more in this why they wouldn't believe her and why they wouldn't immediately leave once weird stuff starts happening. Because by the time they do notice all the weird, crazy stuff, it's too late. There's been a flash flood. They can't get out.
Yes.
Yeah. How about you? Being you were a fan of the original ones going into this one, what would be your big takeaway from the differences?
My biggest one on this one was actually the very end. Mia actually getting unpossessed and still being alive. Like, that's not really something that truly happened. Like Ash, his hand got possessed and he just cut his hand off. So, they stopped it that way, which there was that in this one too, but it was really bad.
Yeah, we actually got 2 hands cut off.
Yeah, and a lot of ripping arms off.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it was the actually getting out of it, and then the demon does rise and she kicks its ass with a chainsaw.
Yeah, that's probably one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, just when I always, after seeing that movie, every time I thought about it, it was always seeing Mia just drenched in blood, because that was the climax right there. That was that climactic scene, raining blood, demon coming up out of the ground, running around trying to kill it, end up killing it with a chainsaw with one arm ripped off.
Yeah.
It was just pretty brutal and dope at the same time.
Yeah, which apparently at the time set a world record for most fake blood used on a set.
That would make sense. That was a shit ton of fake blood.
Yes, it was.
All right, well, we're getting to the end here. Let's go ahead and rate the 2013. What are you thinking on that one?
That one I would probably go with. I'll give it the D20. But with the caveat that I don't watch horror movies or gory movies very much. But if I wanted to watch a horror movie or a gory movie, this would definitely be in the top for ones that I go back to.
Okay, gotcha.
How about you?
Yeah, I would say for me, I would go with a D12 for my former self. Current self, I think it was a little less shocking than Evil Dead Rise, because there was a lot of more gross things in my opinion, but it was still very messed up. So I'd raise my base one to a D10 on that one, because that one, it's the classic, demon cabin in the woods, everybody gets slaughtered type of deal. And, that's just the go-to for me.
Yeah. Always
has been with Friday the 13th and up.
Fair enough.
All right. So there's our blood fest for this episode. You know what? We're going to do this live, man. What are you thinking on the next one? What you get to choose?
I'm not sure. I might have to think it up, because not really nothing really coming to mind as far as movies or shows. And then the shows that I definitely do want to talk about aren't done yet, being Oshinoko. I definitely want to talk about Demon Slayer.
Oh yeah.
I definitely want to talk about Hell's Paradise. I think will be a good one to talk about, because of the fact that I'm pretty sure it's just the one and done season. I don't think they're continuing. So we get the series in its entirety. Yeah, it's very, very good. The art style is insane. Like, man. And then the songs that they have for the show are just so good too.
Oh yeah. So we will get into some anime later. We'll pick another movie coming up here, and we'll keep on rocking and rolling. See you later, everybody.
See ya.